Woo! That was a doozy last night. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Thanks for joining us on KCMO 95.7 FM. And as always, streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. Did last night move the needle in a major way, either way, in the 2024 election? The answer to that question is no. Did Kamala Harris technically win that debate last night? The answer to that question is yes. The bar was very low for Kamala Harris. No one really knew anything about her. No one knows what her principles really are. Nobody knows what Kamala Harris is going to do all that differently the next 4 years if she's elected versus what she's done the last 3.5 if being Joe Biden's vice president. But for someone who had no expectations, she got up there, was highly rehearsed, and sounded halfway decent. And as oftentimes happens, Donald Trump did take the bait one too many times. Now, we've come to expect that. It's par for the course, right? Donald Trump cannot help himself. She was effectively able to get under his skin, and there were missed opportunities all over the place. That being said, am I sitting here this morning saying to myself, oh, Trump blew it. Oh, my goodness, the election has turned in favor of Kamala Harris? No, because it hasn't. And you know how I know it hasn't? She is already looking for a second debate. That tells me that her internal polling suggests that she needs these debates right now more than he does. And by the way, it certainly helps when the moderators are in your back pocket. And not only are they in your back pocket in Kamala Harris's case, they're giving you full-blown colonoscopies is what they were doing last night. My goodness, I haven't seen something that biased from moderators since Candy Crowley back in 2012 with Mitt Romney and Barack Obama. That was an embarrassment to journalism. But I'm not going to spend the next 4 hours complaining about the refs. We knew what the refs were going to do. And from Donald Trump's perspective, and, this is where he's the guy, obviously, that if you don't know, in case you've been living under a rock, I am about to go vote for a third straight election cycle. So that's the guy that whether I like it or not, whether I love it or not, doesn't really matter. Elections are binary choices, okay? You've got two people. You got to pick the best of the two. And for millions of Americans, myself included, we've come to the conclusion that whether it's Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, or Kamala Harris, and Trump may not be the greatest option known to mankind, but he's a heck of a lot better than the other option. And that's the case again this time around. So as is often the case, I look at it and I say, well, where were the missed opportunities? Where were the opportunities for Donald Trump to look at the American people and say, she's selling you a bunch of lies? She has been in office as the vice president with Joe Biden for 3.5 years. And you need to ask yourself if you are better off today than you were when I was in office. And the polling would suggest many of you do not believe that to be the case. You thought that times were a lot better when I was there. And I want to bring that back to you. I want to bring that back to your family. And that's the only point that Donald Trump should have came back to time and time again. Instead, he spent time getting caught up in the weeds on his rallies, on January 6th, on other complaints. And that's not what the American people in large part wanted to hear. And there were opportunities for him to do that. We knew ABC moderators were going to be terrible. Now, they were terrible and more terrible than I thought, but we knew they were going to be terrible. But the best part for Donald Trump last night actually came at the very end. The best part for Donald Trump came in his closing statement. And I'm watching the closing statement, and I'm saying to myself, where was this all night? Can I get a little more of this?
So she just started by saying she's going to do this, she's going to do that, she's going to do all these wonderful things. Why hasn't she done it? She's been there for 3.5 years. They've had 3.5 years to fix the border. They've had 3.5 years to create jobs, and all the things we talked about. Why hasn't she done it? She should leave right now, go down to that beautiful White House, go to the Capitol, get everyone together and do the things you want to do, but you haven't done it, and you won't do it because you believe in things that the American people don't believe in.
That was the point in the last 2 minutes of this debate last night, where I said to myself, that's the only point the American people needed to hear for an hour and 38 minutes. That was it. And it was made, but it was made, for the most part, much later than it should have been made. And just hammering that point home time and time again. Now, we knew the media was going to come out afterwards and say, oh, my gosh, Kamala did amazing. Oh, what a candidate. What a performance. That was probably going to be the case no matter what, unless she magically turned into Joe Biden. Right? So it's not their reaction that's predictable. It's the fact that she was mildly coherent. She did have an approach with her words that sounded good. But what hurt Kamala Harris is exactly what I thought was going to hurt Kamala Harris. Because it's not just about what you say and the niceties and the platitudes and all those things that, largely defined her night, little substance. It was also how you look. The optics are oftentimes everything in these debates. And I told you, she's got to figure out a way to help herself with men. And I didn't think she did that at all last night. I have a picture up on my Twitter page at Pete Mundo, X at Pete Mundo, same thing on the Facebook page. And it's a picture of her with her hand on her chin as Trump's talking. And I thought that was the most obnoxious look of the entire night. Presumptuous, arrogant. And what did I say yesterday? I said, guys don't like that. It was the look of the disappointed ex-wife when you go to pick up the kids. That's what it looked like. And those things matter just as much as what is said. No one's going to remember what's said. People are going to remember how they feel watching these things. And how you look if you're watching on television matters. And whoever coached Kamala Harris on the hand on chin, looking down at Donald Trump, made a huge mistake. That was a childless cat lady who was watching way too much MSNBC, who taught her up on that and coached her up on that and thought that was a good idea. So if you're asking me, all right, who won last night? Who might have helped them a little bit last night? It would be Kamala Harris. But it's not nearly as much as some people are making it out to be. And yes, Trump had missed opportunities. Every time I sit down for one of these things for 3 straight election cycles, I think that Trump's going to come in with just something that is not as hyperbolic as it ends up being. And I'm always disappointed. I always am. There's that part of me that just thinks, this time it's going to be a little bit different. And it never is. Never is. And I've just got to accept that. And I think for many of us, we've just got to accept that. But the frustrating part of last night is that we're still going to be now in a coin flip election. When had he done a little bit better job, he could have put himself up in a commanding position coming out of that debate. So now it's a race to the finish. 55 days to go. 913-408-7957. 913-408-7957. I want to get your reaction, though, as well. I mean, these things are always entertaining, and we've got a lot of sound bites, a lot of clips we're going to be getting to throughout the morning here on KCMO. But also you watched it. You listened to it here on 95.7 FM KCMO. And what was your reaction to it? I was at a watch party last night. I'll be sharing some of what was said there with you throughout the morning as well. And don't forget, we do have Tucker Carlson at T-Mobile Center tickets coming up in an hour and a half at 7:45 on KCMO. And at 8:30, Bill O'Reilly is going to be here for a busy reaction Wednesday morning on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.